Hello and welcome to my 17Lands early data review for Lord of the Rings. Today we're talking about the early data that's come out about the format, talking about color strength, color pair strength, all that good stuff. This is all about using Premier draft data, so best of one for Arena. So without further ado, let's get right into it here. I often like to start with the archetype performances of the two colored pairs. As you can see, the highest performing is Rakdos, and it is generally the case on 17Lands. The highest performing archetype is also the one that is drafted the most. It is actually performing well even relative to other best archetypes in formats at this point in the format. Usually after about a week, the best performing archetype tends to fall below 60%, but this one is basically holding firm at 61, which really does show its strength. A lot of this is built off of the back of cards that are underrated, which is again is always sort of true when it comes to the best deck. It's all about where people value it. The second, so that's sort of a tier. Like you could say it's sort of a tier by itself. I think that the data suggests it's a tier by itself so far. The other two decks that are somewhat close to it in terms of win rate are Orzhov and Boros. So early on, it's those three that are the highest performing. Now, there's been a lot of talk, and so obviously that's the that's sort of where we're at, right? Like those three colors are good. For me personally, I have found that the white color pairs have not been that great. Like they've been fine, but they haven't been that great. So yeah, I don't know. I'll talk more about that in a moment. So after that, is it Golgari, Dimir, and yeah, that's kind of it. I would say that's probably it for that like third tier. Decks overall good. These are sort of the blue decks basically. The rest of the blue decks, which are performing fine, but and you can see the average is 56 right now, which is pretty normal. So it's still above average, but then you get to the worst decks, the Azorius, Selesnya, Gruul, and Simic with still sub 50% win rate with 17Lands users, which is actually hard to do. But you know what is even harder to do? Yesterday, oh, it's not true anymore. It used to be, now nobody played, and the top players actually played Simic, but actually the top players were doing worse with Simic than the average players until very recently. So that just shows you how bad the deck is. Though, if we want to get into sick brags, I did go 5-3 with this deck. So this deck is not even good, but it did go 5-3. Like this is not even a good deck, but I put it bad. I mean, there's some decisions. There were some decisions that were made with this when it came to this deck, but yeah, I just tried to go all in and whatnot. Anyways, so yeah, that's sort of like the rankings, right? Now, again, if we talk about, and there's been a lot of discussion about the blue decks. So among top players, the blue decks are performing much better than basically all of the top decks among top players are sort of performing the same. Boros and Orzhov are performing relatively worse. Izzet is performing a lot better. Golgari is performing a lot better. And Simic is performing basically the same, which is crazy. Like Azorius is performing better too. Green, white, and Gruul are not changing. And again, there's been a lot of discussion about how good blue is, how underrated blue is. I do agree there is certainly a lot to be said about blue right now in the format where it's at. I do think green is going to be draftable. It is not currently really draftable, except outside of like Golgari. I think that there will come a time where green decks are actually draftable in the format, but for now, I don't think that's where we're at. Yeah, so let's look at some cards. Generally, I like to start with the commons of each color. So we're gonna start with white. White has two commons tied for the best with win rate with Tetra of Gondor and Aaron Rider of Gondor. The top two. Both of these cards are very solid. They also both go very late. or at least Protector does. Like I've seen it wheel. Like it probably should never be wheeling. The ALSA indicates that it wheels. I don't remember Circovitz's exact numbers on like the ALSA and like when it wheels, like when stuff wheels. But yeah, it should basically never be wheeling. And yeah, so this card also not going as late on Rider of Gondor. Just a really solid card. It is a 2-for-1 in this format. You are playing fewer lands in this format a lot, although white maybe not so much because Eagles of the North is kind of bad. But yeah, this card is solid, and no, nothing much more to say. Next on the list is East Farthing Farmer. I think this card is actually likely to continue to improve over the course of the set. I think as food decks become less contested. This card inherently is powerful, in that it, in the right, like, with the right stuff, you can make it kind of go off. But again, so now we've seen the win rate drop a significant 2% here, basically to about average. We're getting to basically the average range. We're out of tier 2 and we're down into tier 3, if you talk about my rating scale. And the card is fine. I don't know if I would take any of these other cards over it. I mean, I'm not really playing a lot of white. It's just hard to play white cards right now. Yeah. So then Westfold Rider, I've been really underimpressed. Like, I have been really unimpressed with Westfold Rider personally. I have played it, and then like every time I play it, like my opponent just goes rally onto, and I'm like, okay, I guess I just lose. Like, you just don't win ever. So it's not great in that matchup. Stalwarts has overperformed at least my expectations of it, and the reason for that is that ring tempting is really good. Just any card that says ring tempting on it is kind of busted if you have enough cards that say ring tempting on them. So this card is one such card where it's like, yeah, I mean, it looks kind of bad, but actually it almost always is your second. If it is always your second ring tempt, it's actually pretty good, and it can sort of help get you to the middle part of the game. If Hobbit Sting, Eagles of the North, like all the land cyclers are fine. Eagles of the North is probably my least favorite of them. Actually, Oliphant is worse, I think, but like I'm not a huge fan of this one specifically. A lot of that is because you can't just play it, you know, like it kind of like if it were like 5 mana, it would be busted, I think, is kind of my take on it. Escape from Orthanc, yeah, I mean, it's probably the best trick in white, but there really aren't any actually good tricks in white, so yeah. This card's been kind of playable, would be how I would describe this card, and its stats indicate that. It's been sort of fine. So, yeah. Esquire has actually underperformed for me. I thought this card would be a lot better, but it just is like, you kind of have other stuff, like you often have other stuff to spend your mana on. Like, you just don't, it's not like HPG, where you basically just like never had anything to spend your mana on other than just Unicorn. Like, you have other stuff to spend your mana on. You're looting your lands away a lot, so. Tuck Reaper, despite saying ring tempts you, is not that good. Banish, it has its place. Like, if you were to look in blue-white, I guess we can like look in that right now. I assume Banish is going to be much higher. It's actually not higher at all. This is the deck I would want Banish in, though. Like, I don't think you really want it in any of the other decks, so I don't know. Actually, has a lower one. Well, that's because blue-white is a low one, right? I could look at like, yeah. I have been very happy with the Blade and red-white, to be honest with you. Like, if you have enough humans. Like, if you have enough humans, I think this is actually, like, genuinely a good card. But if you don't, which is, I don't know, 95% of decks. Like, basically, the only time this is ever good is in red-white. And then in red-white decks, it's only good in, like, half of the decks. So, it has its moments. Yeah, the rest of these are kind of just, like, mono unplayables. Like, I don't know. I mean, these are all, like, they're hovering at 52, 51%, right? Physical Breakfast is really bad. I actually don't think this card is that bad, but it is pretty bad, you know, like it's one of those cards, it's like, I always am a hater of cards that just don't do anything. Like, if you're like on turn 4, your like card needs to do a thing, and like this card sometimes just doesn't do anything on turn 4, and it's a 4 mana card, so those tend to be really bad. Alright, so that's white. I would say white is probably the fourth best color for me right now. I'm really not, like, this is part of the reason that, like, white is, we look at Elsa's. This is crazy to me, by the way. Like, look at this. Like, this would make you think that white's actually, like, more open, because people are drafting this so high, so you can actually, like, draft the good cards instead of drafting Fog on the Bear Downs. But, unfortunately, I don't think we're there yet. Like, it's just, because people are taking Iron Riders highly enough, it kind of just, like, makes the whole thing fall apart, because there aren't that many good commons. Blue, on the other hand, has a lot of decent commons. Here's blue, Birthday Escape coming in at number 1. My hot take before the format. I think I said blue's best common at this before the format. I believe that I did. I don't know if I said that or not. I think I said Gale was going to be the best common. I was between these two. Because, I mean, like, the reality is that, like, this card is just, like, busted. Like, I think people will start to see as the format goes on, like, how good this card is. Basically, it's a 1-mana cantrip that also gives you a loot, like, so often, and also makes your thing, like, unblockable sometimes. Like, it just has so much utility, and it gets in your graveyard for all your spells matter things. Like, it's really, like, this card is really good in blue red and blue black, and then you're not, like, playing any of the, like, it's fine in blue white too. It's not as good. It's actually decent in blue white if you have, like, the Prince guy, which is why you're playing blue white probably. So yeah. Glorious Gale, also fantastic. There was some hate going out on this card early, because there's a lot of, like, creature spells in this format, especially in red-black, but the reality is that creatures are still sort of the name of the game, and this does counter them, and sometimes, like, if this ever ring tempts you, it's kind of just, like, winning the game. Like, it's really hard to beat that extra ring acceleration if you cast a legendary into this. The third is a bit of a surprise to see the Messenger, single blue, and it amasses in -3/-0. I think the reason this card is so good is that it plays really well with all of, like, it's an instant, so instants are just good in blue in this set. Now, I know the best card in the set is a sorcery, but, like, Birthday Escape's busted, so, like, if it were an instant, it would be, like, literally ridiculous. If this card were an instant, it would be, like, actually absurd. But, as is, like, this card, and actually, I've seen these win rates have actually been climbing quite a bit over the last couple of days as red and black are becoming more contested. These cards are winning a lot more, like the blue cards. And this one specifically, just, it plays so well early, and blue's game plan is just to, like, eventually you're just going to outcard your opponent. So if you have to, like, on turn 1, or, like, this, basically the reason this card is so good is that it plays well against Rally at the Hornburg. Like, it trades equally with that card, and trading equally with that card, A, is almost impossible to do on turn 2, but this one does do that. And, B, it just, like, it just has a lot of utility, and it does, like, a cheap spell that, like, gets in your graveyard for your stuff, and, like, triggers all your stuff. It's, like, it's just good. Isolation, personally, I'm not, like, a huge, like, you don't want, like, more than, like, 2 of these, but they're fine. Like, they're good. Like, obviously, clearly the data is suggesting they're good. The data always likes these cards, and people tend to like them less than, the win rates indicate. There was the one from Brothers War we can go talk about really quickly, like this one. Not this one. Where is it? Desynchronize. Like, this card had, like, a decent, like, nobody ever played this card. Its Alsa is 8.66. Nobody ever played it. Nobody ever picked it, and this is just true for the entire format. Its IWD was 1.1. Now, obviously, it's a 5-drop, so that, like, makes sense. Its opening hand win rate was kind of atrocious. Like, that's the one thing where, like, yes, it is bad. Like, it's bad in your opening hand, but, like, any 5-minute spell is going to be kind of bad in your opening hand. So, I don't know. I think people should have been playing one copy of this more. And this is kind of, like, a better version. It doesn't scry or anything, but, like, I don't know. It's just a solid, like, again, blue. It's an instant in blue, and, like, it's a spell. It's removal. You can, like, do stuff with it, like, does, like, blank the army tokens. It's what I think it's the only removal in the set that, like, really, like, actually works on armies. But the thing is, the armies are kind of like, are you really getting them, like, from, like, a tempo's perspective, because they probably didn't spend, like, mana on the army? I don't know. The next card is Peligro Survivor. A real surprise for me. I think one of the things I missed about this card was that it's any color. And I think that's actually the reason this card's good. I know that there are some people that will tell you that it's good because it's a good ring bearer, but there are other 1/3s in this set that wouldn't be good. You know what I mean? Like, I think if this added blue, I think it would actually just like be the same as all the other ones. I think the big miss for me when I evaluated this card, like going into the set, was that any color is so much more colors than blue. It actually does help like fix your mana. It is a true like mana dork in a lot of these decks because you are playing mostly spells. Like you're playing, I don't know, 75% spells, something like that in blue decks, most blue decks. And so it is like fixing, and it is also like a solid thing that blocks. Another card that's actually good against not Fear Fire Foes. No card is good against Fear Fire Foes. Good against Rally. So the presence of Rally is really dictating some of these things. Soothing is another card with good win rate. You sort of have this like group of like 57, 58% win rate cards. This like whole package here. This card's decent. Again, anything that says ring temps you on it is better than I think most people give it credit for. Its Alsa is actually higher than Isolation, which honestly is not where I would take the cards, but I do sort of agree with this Alsa being a little high because it is a land cycler. Glory Unrevealed. But Soothing is fine. It hits a lot. Like it is awkward. Like you don't want to play like 4 of these. Like that's too many. 3 might even be too many. Because there are diminishing returns on this card. I mean, which is kind of awkward. Like it's a card that has diminishing returns, but also ring tempting synergy. Like sort of makes up for that because the more ring tempting you have, the better it gets. So it has diminishing returns, but also it kind of like doesn't. So it's kind of weird. I really like Lorien Revealed, and so does everybody else. It's the land cycler that draws 3. I did cast this, and then my opponent Orcish Bowmastered, and I immediately lost. So that was fun. I did have the privilege of having that happen to me. I was like, oh, they're triple. It was black. It was like swamp, and I was like, oh, I'll cast my Lorien Revealed. What are they gonna do? Oh, okay, Orcish Bowmasters, and I just like lose. So don't do that. Like, don't play against Orcish Bowmasters. But if you're not, this card's great. Another surprise, Dreadful with the Storm having a decent win rate and is just performing somewhat well. I have a deck that I just drafted with this card, a couple of copies of this card, and I want to try it out just because I have a lot of like muster and stuff, and I'm kind of like this blue-black, like weird mid-range aggro-y deck. Just does a decent amount. Again, ring tempting is just kind of better than you think. Being able to eat stuff and like whatever is good. It does like so much damage to the face too, and that's kind of all the relevant commons. You have like some other stuff. Another relevant comment that people like, here's the Alsa data. Like, the Alsa is Kingfisher at #1, and this card is unplayable. I will never play this card. I mean, unplayable is maybe like a little bit of a stretch, but it is losing. Like, 54% is less than 56%. And, it is a severe outlier. All the other Alsas actually line up mostly with the right order, like, for the most part. There are some, like, obvious ones, like this one's wrong, but, Dreadful's the Storm also wrong, but, like, these, like the Kingfisher, it's just like someday like the populace has got to learn that like dies triggers are so bad. Also in this set, this card is especially bad in this set because there's so many 1/1s that just attack into this, and it's just like, okay, I guess I'm never because it's never blocking profitably. That's the issue. When this draws a card when it ETBs, you can attack with it because you're like, oh, I want to attack, and like I've already got my card out of the deal, so whatever. But when it doesn't draw the card when it ETBs, you have to block. But then your opponent is getting to dictate more about when you draw the card. It's just, this is why Dice triggers are bad. Don't play Dice triggers. Leechcraft is embarrassing. Anything else that's embarrassing? This card's like a meme, but like you can do stuff with it if you're memeing. Nothing else super notable. The rest of these are pretty obviously bad. I can't, like, this is like, wow. I wonder if this has better or worse stats than Hill Giant would. Probably like about the same. Alright, on to black, the best color by quite a margin. You can see this by the game and hand win rates. #1 is Claim the Precious. I don't disagree with this. I think it is better than Crebain. Though, I mean, yeah, I mean, they're both busted. Like, they're both really good. Crebain goes a little bit later. But, you know, actually I think they go with they do. Lash of the Balrog. Anyways. And then Torment of Golem. Torment of Golem is a busted Magic the Gathering card that goes way too late. It's just really absurd. So the thing about this card that is so good is that sometimes it's like 4 mana, make your 2/2 amass token into a 4/4, hit your opponent for 4, take their best card. And that's just like completely like game ending. When I previewed this card, I thought that this card would be sort of bad, and the reason I thought that is that on turn 4, I figured that your opponents would have cast all their good spells by that point. Just based on like the last couple sets where it's like all the busted rares and like good commons were like 3 mana and whatever. But like in this set, there's like kind of a lot of stuff that you're like, they are still gonna have cards. Like I basically was like, oh, they're not gonna still have cards that actually matter. But no, they are still gonna have cards that matter on turn 4, and this can get rid of those and make your life a lot easier. Ambush performing at the 4th highest game in hand win rate in black. Actually, like this is a very underrated card as well. People take it very late. I don't know. I don't really know what to say. Like this card, like was always busted. There have been multiple instances in this format where I've actually burned people out with the 1 damage from it. It just like it's so much. Like it's like it makes all of your like 1/1s like tokens that are all over the place. They trade up with anything, and then you get a food token out of the deal for free. And then also, it means that like if your opponent ever double blocks, they sometimes just lose. Like double blocking is so bad against black because of just A, there's decent instant speed removal, and B, there's just like Shelob's ambush, and you're just like, well, I guess I'm getting like 2 for like 8 for 1 or whatever. So yeah. Sandstorm Rescue is sort of like where things start to fall off. So these 4 commons are sort of all that same like tier 2, like 1A. And there's like the tier like 2 up to like all the way down here. Where all of these cards are like winning more than any common of any other color other than red, I think. Yeah. Green, kick W. But yeah, so all of the top like 8 black cards are winning more. Like if we look at the overall common rankings, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Of the top like 15, 10 of them are black card commons. So that's, you know, and the other one, all the other ones are red. So that's the joke. And it's like blue and white and stuff, but yeah, so like all of the, like basically any card that is like black and a common is good. Where things start to sort of fall off is like Patrol. The rest of these are kind of medium. Bats, kick W, Trebuchet. Troll is the best of the land cyclers in my opinion. I really like it a lot. Just because it actually is like a late game. It's a finisher. Like it's a really good finisher. Like genuinely, you can just put, if it just sticks, their opponent's like, well, I guess I'll die in 2 turns probably. Berserker, again, another card that like ring temps. There's just all these like really solid like black commons in here. Like all these, even Haunt has like good stats. Like I don't think you should play more than one of these ever, but it's decent. Like one of them's decent. Lash of the Balrog is also fine, but it's like it is drafted a little too highly just because it's removal. Actually, there are some bad ones. Like there are like Marble Knife Wound is really bad. All that stuff, but yeah, black is just really super insane. On to the red commons, Rally at number 1, and it's not even close. This is maybe the biggest gap we've seen between number 1 and number 2 in terms of game in hand common win rate since. Oh, actually, you know what? This is like basically the same as Pretty Champion to Dispersal. Yeah, it's like 2%. It's pretty big, but yeah. So Rally is much better than Smite, but Smite is still very, very solid. This card still wheels sometimes. I don't know. You tell me. Quarrel's End is the 3rd one. I think this would surprise a lot of people. Again, like the red. Part of the reason that red is good is that like you get these 2 cards so late. You get Relentless Rohirrim and Quarrel's End. Quarrel's End is just so good in this format because it's a spell that makes a creature, and also it enables you to like what this format is kind of about is just getting like drawing as few lands as possible, more so than a lot of other formats. Like, it's just kind of like you kind of just want to have things in your deck that make it so you don't draw lands, because there is issues with that. Like, land cyclers are about, that's about, the ring is what that's about. There's just so much, like, and this is just more of that effect. So yeah, it's just really, really strong. Club, another really strong card that just kind of you want one of in every deck. The second copy obviously gets a lot worse. Rohirrim, Ring Tempt. Like, this card is just busted. I think that people need to have this card played against them more to like understand how good it is. You kind of just play this card on turn 4, and again, this is another one where it's like this is almost always the second Ring Tempt you instance, which makes it like even better. It's just like, I don't know. It's just crazy. This card's just crazy good. It just is like a 4/3 is kind of big in this format because green is bad for now. So like once the green decks get good, I expect this to maybe get. But even then, like you can still attack because it's got you can give it the ring to itself and all that. So a lot of good stuff. War Beast is surprisingly decent. It is very annoying. It's 2 bodies. You also don't want to block your other stuff. Alzar Goblin has decent stats for some reason. I don't really know why. And the card's not that bad, I guess, apparently. Yeah, the rest of these I'm just kind of looking through here, see if there's anything interesting I want to talk about. There really isn't anything interesting I want to talk about. Like, I don't think Flamesmith is that good, personally. I also don't really like this card that much compared to where other people have it. It's fine. Like, this is a sort of like, if this was, I mean, if this thing entered the battlefield ring tempted, I think it would probably be Red's best common. Maybe it might even be better than Rally. It would be close, but because it's dies, it's just so much worse. Like if you could make this in the ring bear on one, it would just be like an absolute beating. But no. So yeah, that's kind of where Red's at. Red is mostly just kind of like you'll notice that all of Red's most of Red's best commons are all spells. Like these are spell, 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 and these kind of like make like a nice, like they work together in like the blue red and like black red decks as well. All right, green. Does green have any good commons? Well, none of them have a win rate higher than the average 17Lands user win rate, so that's always a good place to start. These cards are sort of mostly the good green cards. Like, basically, like I kind of agree with all of these. I would have this probably over this one. But yeah, they're all the green cards that are good are like Tempt card. All the food and like Scry cards are really bad. Like this card. Like this card. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking on this one. I genuinely can't figure it out. I have never lost to this card. It's so bad. But yeah, green is sort of doing this like thing where it will eventually be playable, I think, but we're not there yet. The thing about green is that people do not know what the good cards. Like, people are gonna just want to draft blue-green in this set. There's always gonna be like, because blue-green is so well, like, people are like told, oh, blue-green is a deck. It's like a thing to do. Like, Wizards is like, hey, this is the thing that's happening in the format. Like, blue-green is doing Scry, and there's all these Scry cards, and it's easy to see. So like, people are gonna want to draft all the Scry cards. So I think that green will likely be open as the format goes on, and you can like actually draft it. But for now, like, I don't know. For now, don't play it, basically. Let's look at the top uncommons. So a lot of these are going to be black and red. We have Yomir of the Rittermark at number 1 for now. That's 65%. In terms of all of the cards, I think it's, yeah, here it is. It's number 8 or something. Wow, look at me, I can count. So pretty high up there with the rares and mythics. A lot of good uncommons in this set, but yeah, this card is just super busted. It just does so much. Like, it's just a powerful attacker when it enters the battlefield and just like makes a 1/1, and then also has like a 5/4 haste. It's just so huge. Like, nothing blocks it. This is another card that's better because green is bad, because green is where all the 4-mana 4/4s are that kind of block this, but also all the 4-mana 4/4s are bad. So that makes this card a lot better. Like if 4 mana 4/4s were good, this card would be worse, but they aren't good. So this card is much better because nothing really blocks it profitably except for Nazgul, High Nazgul. Fearfire Foes is second. Yeah, this card is just really absurd. It wipes your opponent's board so often, and it like when this gets cast against you, it just is an absolute. It's just a nightmare. Like how do you like when this cast gets cast against you? It's just like it just feels like the game is just completely over. So yeah, it's also so flexible too. You can just use it as a removal spell if you have to, and sometimes you're supposed to. But third up, Nazgul. Yeah, this card has really done better than I thought it would. I just thought like 3 mana 2/3 Death Touch would kind of be like not that good, but actually it is really annoying because again anything with ring temp is just absurd, and because anything with ring temp is just absurd, this card gets better when you have ring temp cards and it tempts you. So it's just like it's doing all this stuff and it's just really busted. So yeah, Fell Beast is the next one, another card that is doing better than I thought. I see 6 mana 4/4 flyer and I'm like, ah, it's garbage. But this one, and actually like it's even doing better than like you would think it would do when you see how many like 1/1s there are just randomly around in the set. Like I would think that this would perform worse, but it just still kind of just gets there. So it just kind of like does all the stuff that it needs to do. Grishnok busted. The thing about Grishnok is that you can just play it on 3, and you should most of the time, unless you have a sack outlet in hand, then maybe not. But a lot of times you just play it on 3, and you just make it 3 mana 3/3 that is just like really good. So. I don't know. The first card that involves not black or red is Shadow Summoning. Yeah, this card's busted. Saruman's Trickery is the one after that, and this one another card that's just absolutely busted. But like again, like we knew this beforehand. A lot of red and black cards. Bilbo, Book. Oh, here's Frodo. Green white. Yeah, so Frodo having a 60% game in hand win rate despite being like green white was kind of crazy. Its IWT is 10.5. Oh no, dude. That actually makes so much sense. I mean, Frodo is insane. I think that at some point during this format, like Frodo is going to be actually good. You guys actually going to be right to draft Frodo. We're not there yet. It's just like green and white cards are so bad. It's just like, why are we doing this? The answer is that we're not doing it. There's just a lot of busted uncommons in this set. There's just so many uncommons that are just like really strong. All of these are so good, except for Oath. I don't know why Oath is this high. Goblin Fire Leaper has good stats. It's actually surprising. I mean, it has been sort of annoying to play against, I would say. That's kind of my take on Goblin Fire Leaper. I know, let's see the worst one. What is this? Endless Restoration? Sedge. Oh, Legolas. Well, at least it doesn't have the worst run rate in the set. Noted B-. I'm sad about Long List of the Ants. I thought this would be playable. It's not. Oh man, wow, this thing just has the worst stats of all time, which actually makes total sense. To be honest with you, despite having played with it and it being like decent. Man, all these green cards, it's crazy. This is a card that you will see good players play a lot, but has really bad stats. The reason that good players play it a lot is because they have like a lot of Quarrel's Ends in their deck. It's not a card that you really want to be like casting. I don't know. I'm not super high on this, to be honest. I think I'd rather just like play good spells. I wonder what Arwen's game's not seeing when right is. Yikes. Alright, so let's do the rares. I guess we just do everything. So that's it in terms of like the most important stuff in the set. Talked about decks, talked about commons and uncommons that are notable. The rares, we got Orcish Bowmasters. There's sort of like this first tier of like really busted stuff. Like these four. Arwen is also really busted, but again, like green-white, so, you know. Like when you see the games that's in rate of 48, it's, you know. But yeah, these cards are super busted. Except for me, when I have cast Horn of Gondor 5 times in this format, and I have lost 4 of those games. So that's, or actually no, it's been in my hand 5 times, and I have lost 4 of those games. So it's not completely unbeatable. I'm basically single-handedly dragging this thing's win rate down. I don't know what I'm doing wrong with it. I have lost every game that I've had this in my hand too. So I'm really just out here like making the rares look bad, but you know, they're not just complete beaters. It is true. Anything notable on here, like just like the rares and mythics, like these are basically all of the mythics and rares that you don't see, like this top like 20 or so cards are kind of unplayable. Like a lot of like they're just sort of like random. Like there's only a couple rares that are like super good. Like if you look at the rares specifically, they fall off. I mean, they just kind of follow a normal curve. You've lost Outcalling, that's a privilege. Anything that's worse. Hugh the Enwood's got to be worse. Is anybody playing it? No. Nobody is playing it yet. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, that's it for my early set review. My takeaways are that black is really busted. Red is also pretty good, and blue is great, and white and green are kind of medium. So that's it for me.